Tania, thanks very much for joining us. It would be interesting to get your sense of I suppose, where we are at the moment in terms of infrastructure markets and where you see that heading forward, into 2022.
Well, I think the overall infrastructure market is seeing a lot of appetite at the moment. It's interesting as well to observe that the market was relatively resilient in 2020 overall. Investment flows, obviously, we saw a dip, but the dip was not as pronounced. And I think we're seeing a lot of investment volumes coming in and across sectors, even sectors like transportation infrastructure are actually starting to rebound. I think in terms of the investment flows, a lot of tailwinds are coming up. Obviously, we have the Fit for 55 in Europe, which has very, very ambitious agenda in terms of the power transition and decarbonization in Europe. We also see the 1 billion infrastructure bill in the US. So that's all, I think, bodes well for infrastructure investment, at least in the next 5 to 10 years.
And looking at the transportation side, Tanya, obviously there's a big focus on supply chains, infrastructure, but transportation more widely. How do you see that market?
So the transportation infrastructure market was the most severely impacted last year. And I think we've seen a lot of ups and downs over the last 20 months. So things are starting to recover. I think it's important to mention that there's pockets within transportation infrastructure that were relatively resilient. So it's not all bad news. I think we saw the port sector was quite stable. We're also seeing a very, very strong rebound on toll roads as people, seem very I think, happy and keen to be back in their passenger vehicles. But there's still some pockets as well, which are seeing uncertain outlook. International aviation, cross-border, I think travel overall will still, I think there's going to be still uncertainty because of the threat of new virus strains coming in.
In terms of the overall markets, the infrastructure markets, Tanya, I suppose, where are you seeing at the moment and looking forward? Where are you seeing the challenges and the opportunities?
So in terms of, I think, the opportunities and the short term, we're seeing the economic rebound, right, is very, very strong. And we see as well investors worrying about inflation. So overall, that puts infrastructure right there in the spotlight. I think it is definitely one of the obvious asset classes to invest in because it has inflation protection. And also because some of the subsectors like, transport infrastructure, there is a demand risk. And obviously we're going to have better volumes as we move forward. But I think in terms of the long term, we really have to think about the megatrends. And I think, demographics, growing population, also think in terms of the rising middle class, urbanization, all of those trends, obviously with differences across the regions, but that will mean that we're going to see a lot more need and use of infrastructure. So I think longer term, the kind of the demographics as well is supportive in terms of investment flows.
Tanya, really interesting to catch up. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.